universe. Welcome to the show. Today we have a wonderful guest. This is Matt Worldly. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show.
We're going to be talking about a lot of different things involving psychedelics, cosmic exploration, and creativity kind of as a whole. He's an incredible artist. I will definitely leave his Instagram and Facebook handle as well on.
Sure, that's fine.
Sounds good. We'll get both of those put in the link below. Definitely check those out and jump on his page, show him some love. He is damn well worth it. So, we also have another person on the show. If you hear a voice in the background in a little bit, we have Mario. He is going to be our Googler today. He was on the last show as well. So let's jump right in. So how would you describe your artwork? What messages does it share to the world?
Someone said something one time. It was really inspiring. They said it forces you to be aware. It forces your third eye open, and to just see something new, which was a really great compliment. Normally when people ask me how would I describe my artwork, I would say it's an accumulation of all of the ancient cultures of the world funneled into one style. And this wasn't something that I was consciously aware of, or I wasn't a history major and found fascination in ancient cultures. I just started drawing, and one thing led to another. And based on the feedback I was getting from people who saw my art, that's sort of the direction I went in, was other people's feedback of, oh, this looks very Aboriginal, this looks like Asian influence, this looks tribal, this looks almost Celtic, and I'm just wow, I get all these answers, all these interpretations, and they're so worldly. It's so awesome. So at this point, that's how I would describe my art, as an accumulation of all the ancient cultures.
Yeah, a lot of your artwork that I noticed, especially in the room that you did, oh my gosh, you have so much symbolism in there. I love the way that you oriented the cross. I thought that was really beautiful, that it is really a plus and a minus sign put together. It's the positive and the negative. It's a yin and a yang. It's a huge balancer, and it's almost has so much dogma surrounding it now, and I like that you take it apart in order to almost rejuvenate the power that it once had, alongside even the swastika, because the swastika has a lot of messed up, derogatory sensation to it, but it's really originally was not that intention whatsoever. It was a really beautiful piece of prosperity.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yep.
It's great. So how would you describe the alien wizard science that you do? Because that is one of the most unique and beautiful things that I think I've ever seen in my entire life.
Sure. Alien wizard science is an art form that I invented, and it's essentially painting with light refractions. I found these projection lenses inside of an old projection TV in Denver when I first moved here, and I was so fascinated by these giant lenses, I took them out of the TV, and they just sat on my shelf for probably at least a year, until one day I think I finally just got curious, and I shined a laser through it, and I just saw how it what it did to the laser beam, and then I shined a light through it. I saw what it did to the light, and then I just started sort of adding all these components, these layers of light in front of these lenses, and I learned how to create organic light projections with these lenses, so I don't have to use a computer, and I don't have to use a projector. All I need are these lenses, a light source, and a transparent object, and whatever is etched inside of that transparent object, or whatever texture a piece of glass has, I can blast light through the glass, and then the lenses essentially act like a black hole, and it sucks all the light through and then spits it back out onto a projection on the wall. And I just started layering textures of glass and color and light refraction and creating these portals essentially, and then I started painting on top of them and combining the mediums together. So alien wizard science is a combination of light refractions and neon paint under black light. So it's like an experience best experienced in like darkness, pretty much. Is like it's very beautiful because the art form is essentially creating light in the dark, finding light in the dark. So it's very symbolic and metaphorical and beautiful. Just the process in itself, I love it.
It's definitely well worth the time to just go explore, and especially to hear your tours, because there's so much stuff that I would not have ever caught if I didn't like follow you around that tour. It was absolutely incredible. Definitely for those of you guys who live in Denver, go check out the Santa Fe. What is the building that you call? It's the
Yeah. So cool story. Metamorphosis is like kind of closed right now. I only had the space for like 45 days, like 2 months.
Really?
And within that amount of time, I painted the entire gallery, and one thing led to another, and it became this like 7-step transformative meditation portal is what I ended up calling it. And at any point in time during this process, halfway through it, right at the beginning, at the end, someone could have just come and like, rented the building and then painted over the wall. So at any point in time, I could have lost everything. But instead, what had happened was I have a really good relationship with the owner of that space. And I was talking to my girlfriend, and I said, yo, we need to get some rugs in this space, because that would be really cool, like to have rugs in a meditation chamber and just really give it an awesome ambiance. And a couple days later, the owner texted me and was like, hey, someone wants to lease the space. So at first I just wanted to freak out and be like, oh fuck, like I'm gonna lose everything. And I said, you know what, Matt, like everything's gonna work out, everything's gonna be just the way it's supposed to be. And I followed up with him, and I'm like, so who's moving in? And he's like, this Persian family, and they're gonna sell rugs and carpets in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah. And I'm just like, like I said, I'm like, all right, okay. If it was meant to happen, it was meant to happen. So sure enough, the way things unfolded, I actually got the owner of the building to include in the lease for the people who are leasing the building for a year, do not paint the walls. So right now, my entire art installation is hiding behind these beautiful Persian rugs.
Oh my goodness. It's almost like a treasure to be found now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful just to think that the art is hibernating during the winter.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's really, really symbolic, and it'll be released once again at some point.
Yeah.
Would you mind, as briefly as possible, describing the 7 steps of this world that you created? Because it is so transformative, and I wish I would have spent more time in there, because I couldn't get enough of it. I was in there for probably like 2-3 hours that one night. I was just like completely mesmerized.
Thanks. Yeah. The 7 steps are observation, reflection, awareness, death, meditation, perspective, and rebirth. And each one of these steps is designed to open up the layers of our subconscious in order for us to really have an authentic connection with this place. Because oftentimes when we're struggling in life, we associate or we amount our problems, or what we think the problem is, to something that has nothing to do with the actual problem. The problem is normally like some deep psychological stuff that happened to you when you were a kid, or when you were in high school or elementary school. And Metamorphosis is really designed to open people up to seeing things from new perspectives, whether it's something about themselves, or some way they treat somebody, or sort of how they see themselves in the world. Metamorphosis was designed to just walk people through these steps, and as they do go through these steps, they open up. So observation was all about seeing the bigger picture, noticing that all of the tiny pieces amount to something much larger. So often we're just focused too much on the big picture, like, my life sucks because of my job. But really, if you were to zoom in on that, you'd see more than just your job. You'd see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the more you see all the small things, that's how you see the bigger picture. And then you would move on to reflection, and reflection is after you have observed something, that's when you need to reflect on it, both literally and metaphorically. And this
Metamorphously.
was metamorphously. Yeah. And then awareness is after you reflect on it, then you have your aha moment, and you step into awareness, and that's the wall with the crucifix and the swastika on it, and that's when you're presented with new ways of seeing things, new ways of seeing the world, seeing the similarities that there are interdimensional beings that can use pyramids the same way we do to communicate with different planets or galaxies near or far, and there were also stars, and there was also the Vesica Pisces symbol, and there were these two beings that were very welcoming that had mermaid tails. So it was me trying to show people that like at the wall of awareness, like the universe is not as big as we think. Like there are a lot of similarities. All of these symbols that are in our culture are shared and inherited from beyond. We don't just make up the tetrahedron or the swastika. Like these symbols come from somewhere, and then we inherit them, and then we integrate them into our society and our culture, and that's why they're so stimulating. That's why they're marketable, because they're subconsciously stimulating. So this was what the wall of awareness was, for people to just sort of open up and say, oh, okay, like I get it. And like once you get it, once you see the bigger picture and you have that aha moment, you're sort of like presented with a fork in the road. And the fork is like, you either go through life living with these new awarenesses and you integrate them in your life, or you go through life being aware that of these new things, but you completely ignore them and you live an unfulfilled life. And then in order to step into that path of integrating all of this new awareness, a part of you has to die, and that's the wall of death. And that's when you see that that the shadow is this giant octopus, and I chose this octopus because the shadow has multiple faces, like the face of or the shadow of doubt, the shadow of guilt, the shadow of shame, sex, all these different shadows that sort of haunt our psyche that we're not necessarily aware of. It is a being, that feeds off of our energy, and once we recognize that, that's when we can readjust our relationship with the shadow, once we're aware of it, instead of ignoring it or running from it, because that only makes it worse. So this can be a very overwhelming experience, stepping into death, letting a part of you die, whether it's a habit or someone in your life who you believe that you loved for a long time, and cutting them loose. So whether it's an actual physical thing that you're cutting off or it's something within you, that's when you go to the wall of meditation, and that's when you breathe through all of this, and you're just like, okay, time to just take this in. And this is like the access point for answers, where you see clarity. There was this really beautiful 6-armed being with like multiple faces. It was just so alien, and he was holding these 6 mirrors, and all the mirrors were symbolic for just like all the different reflections and just the way you could look at things instead of being closed-minded. But essentially this was the point where this was the access point where you could open yourself up and ask questions and receive answers. And then from there, once you come out of meditation, you go to the next wall, which was perspective, and that's when you see this massive kingdom of just like this completely different universe, and you feel like you're looking in on it through a portal, like a portal opened, and you're seeing like this beautiful mountainous range, and there's like 11 different planets in the sky, and there's like sperm going into the planets, and you can't tell if it's a sun or a star or an egg or a flower, and it's just like opening your mind up to seeing so many new worlds outside of your own, so that you don't get caught up in what you think you know. This was perspective. This is like blasting your third eye open. And then once you gain a new perspective on life, then essentially you can become reborn, and that's when you go to the wall of rebirth. And that's when you see this big glorious phoenix dragon thing. It's just like rising up and about to like fly away, and It's just like, that's you all the time. We are collectively this giant dragon that is just designed and programmed to thrive and to feel fulfilled and to feel love and to feel beautiful and to be successful. That is innate in everyone.
It's that like self-actualization almost. Just
Exactly.
reaching that highest point, trying to be your highest being, like almost reaching through your crown chakra. Like all of these different symbols, even like there's so many different levels.
Yeah, I mean, there's
to
7
it.
chakras, you know,
Yeah.
and none of this was intended, all this relatability. It was really profound how it all came together.
And there was a lot leading up to you painting this space as well. You went on the trip to
Yeah.
California, and I would love to hear a little bit about like what maybe your biggest breakthrough there, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, my biggest breakthrough. That's a good way to put it. My biggest breakthrough. So I went to what was called Journey to Spirit, and it was essentially like a vision quest. You could just call it that, so people are familiar with sort of what it was. But it was sort of a subconscious annihilation, where each day you would go through these different phases, and they would break down your psyche and open you up in order to, it was very similar to Metamorphosis, honestly. But the most profound breakthrough was like on the first or second night, and then it pretty much like blossomed from there. And there were a lot of breakthroughs and a lot of really profound moments. But the biggest one was the first day, the first morning we woke up to like this drum beating, and we were instructed to run to the fire. So we like ran to the fire. It was freezing ass cold, and we were just instructed to take the stick that we had found and take it down to this really beautiful, oh my god, it's like right below this beautiful waterfall. And we all stood in this line, and there were like 5 or 6 of us, and we had to hold the stick in the air like out in front of us for as long as possible while we sang the song over and over and over again. We couldn't put the stick down, and it was like so painful. And at one point I'm just like screaming because I'm like trying to do my best and really like hold it for as long as I can. I'm trying to like be better than everyone else, and I'm looking at everyone and they're like dropping their stick, and I'm just like, what is this bullshit? Like I started to let other people, with their stick get to me.
You were comparing yourself.
It was like, yeah, I was comparing myself, you could say that. I was like, trying to take the attention off myself and to like put it on them, and something along the lines of, I want to, I want to be seen, and I want people to know that I'm actually doing this. I'm doing a better job than you. That was sort of what was happening in my head, and I thought to myself, you know what? At the campfire tonight, when we do our story and share our experiences, I'm gonna call everyone a pussy, and I'm gonna tell them that they could have done a lot better. And after I sat with that for a while, I'm just like, okay, I'm definitely not going to do that.
Good choice.
but I did say it. I didn't say it in like the frustrated context. At the fire that night, I told everyone it was my turn. I took the stick and stood in front of the fire and shared my experience, and was just like, I wanted to call you guys pussies because I thought you just could have done a lot better, and it immediately it shifted, which is what I wanted to happen, but it shifted to like the elders trying to help me understand where that projection was really coming from, like why I was upset, right? And a lot of things were said and back and forth, and there was one point in time where I just stood there and I couldn't really come up with anything. But this woman named Mariah, she was like, Matt, like what? How are you afraid that people will see you? And then when she asked me that, then it all became clear. And I'm like, I'm afraid that people will see me as insignificant. I fear that people will not find the things that I have to say important. That I'll be treated just like everyone else. That I'm not extraordinary. And that's when I got pretty emotional, and had this like big breakthrough of like, why am I really not being seen? Why have I been in this shell for so long? And that was, the truth, or one aspect of the truth was presented to me, and that's just that I was afraid to be seen because I was afraid that people wouldn't find what I had to say significant.
It's really heavy and a beautiful transformation.
Yeah. That was the first night.
Did that, and I'm sure there was a lot that led up to inspire Metamorphosis, but like, was that like a aha moment to you? Was that your aha moment of like, I should do something grand, or did that just kind of like fall serendipitously alongside your hard work?
Metamorphosis was a product definitely of the Vision Quest, because the Vision Quest cleared out some of that trauma. And created a container, a much larger container for me to go back to Denver and tell the story. It's very difficult for me to just create and to just have fun. Like, I can do that, and it always ends up being something that I never expected, but I really do try to be intentional with my work and, listen to the sounds and, the experiences around me as messages that are being relayed to me that I'm supposed to implement in the art. And once I got back from California, there was so many intense spiritual, cosmic, interdimensional moments in that gallery. And that Vision Quest allowed me, it opened up my soul per se, or it depthened my spirit to a point to where I was ready mentally and spiritually and emotionally to bring this other world into our world. Without the Vision Quest, without going on Journey to Spirit, I definitely could not have done that.
What inspired the name Metamorphosis?
Oh boy. Do you know the answer to that question?
I read a book in high school. It was a Russian book,
Uh-huh.
and it was absolutely beautiful. But before I share, I would like to hear your...
Sure, yeah, I'll tell you. What inspired Metamorphosis? The title initially was going to be Twin Flames. It was just going to be like...
Oh, shit!
It was going to be Twin Flames.
Twin Flames is such a huge symbol. Oh my gosh, that actually hit really, really hard for me. Like, that's something I did a lot of research on a while back, just like learning the power of the Twin Flames, like finding that, like, where your soul resides. Like, it's literally just where your soul resides. It doesn't have to be another person per se.
That's interesting. That you said there doesn't have to be another person, because the name Twin Flame was going to be about like my girlfriend and I. Like we had just met, and she's like, I want to paint, and I got this gallery, and it was very like I said, I really try to listen to my surroundings in the process of creation, especially while I'm undertaking something as big as painting an entire gallery. I'm not just going to paint pretty pictures. I'm not just going to paint cool things. I'm going to paint something that is going to change people's lives. And what inspired Metamorphosis, the title, was a cocoon. There was this cocoon that was outside on my doorway, like in the door frame of where I live. There was this cocoon, and it was so beautiful. It was like this vibrant green, and it was hanging on by this tiny little thread. It was just like leaning backward, and what was keeping it from just falling over was just tiny little thread that was wrapped around. And I just had this beautiful vision of this caterpillar. Like, that was the last thing he did. Like, one of the last things he did before he put himself in the cocoon was like put this thread around it to like keep himself safe. And then he's like, all right, see you in 3 weeks. So I sat next to that cocoon and just meditated on it, and was like so touched just by, I don't know, just how beautiful this cocoon was. And what was happening inside of this cocoon was a metamorphosis, and or a metamorphosis. And from there, that's how the title came to be. I'm like, it's gonna be metamorphosis, but metamorphosis is 3 words into one. It's metamorph us. So it's like a spiritual call to action that's saying, like, we demand rapid transformation right now. that's what Metamorphosis is. And Sequoia, I am not joking you, that cocoon never hatched, because I looked up how long cocoons were supposed to be. My friend and I were so excited for it to hatch, and it just never hatched in that door frame, because it was like, 3 months had passed, and it was supposed to hatch in like 3 weeks, right? I brought it inside as like a little keepsake, just because I always wanted to remember like how special that cocoon was to me. And I came home one day from walking Ray, and the cocoon was open, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna look inside of it, and maybe I'll see some guts, or some shit. I'll look inside of it, and there was nothing in there, and I'm like, oh, I guess that makes sense. And the next day, like, I found the butterfly in my room. Like, it hatched. It was
It waited for you, like this,
fluttering in the corner of my room, and I'm just like, I went over to it, and I just like picked it up, and I'm just like, I mean, what do you say in that moment? Like, what do you do?
You say, holy shit, thank God, or thank whatever.
think whatever. And that butterfly, oh my God, that was like the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my whole entire life.
So beautiful.
And it lived for like, 2 or 3 days maybe. But when it died, I was so sad.
I would have been so heartbroken too.
I was crying so hard. Because like, it was just so beautiful.
It sounds like it was like destined for you. Like it was there, it was waiting. And it set up its spot just for you at the perfect time in your life. Like, there's nothing more serendipitous that I've heard in a long-ass time beyond that.
Yeah, it's incredible. It was really beautiful. So, yeah.
You left me completely speechless.
I know. It's fucking... I know, it's crazy. It's a true story. I got it all on video, too. I got all the documentation. It's a crazy life. Really crazy life.
It really is, and Metamorphosis itself is doing that now, almost.
It is. It's exactly what it's doing. It's in this transition state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's going to merge even bigger and more beautiful,
right?
Even if that's just in the perception, because I don't think it could get any more beautiful if I do say so myself. Like, it is transformative and captivating.
Thank you.
I don't have any better words than that. Like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah. It's wild life we live.
So you run into a lot of synchronicities in your life, huh?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you could say my life is like poetry every day. So many synchronicities that I have to write them down. And, they're all out there for everyone to experience. But once you shift once you sort of tune your channel into the possibility that, this life is kind of like the set of a movie every day, and we wake up and the pieces are laid out in front of us, and how we interact with the world is like really just completely up to us, like how we want to play the game. And once you just open your mind to new ways of like seeing life and thinking of it like an experiment or a video game or a lucid dream, then the universe hears your thoughts, or you could say reads the energy that comes from your mind, and from that shifts your reality, your perceptual reality based on your relative experience. So, yeah.
It's almost a different source of communication. It's like radio waves, but meta. Yeah.
Higher form of consciousness.
Exactly. That is exactly it. Dude, that left me so speechless. I don't even know.
I understand. Like, I'll tell you what. I'll take a bong hit and you can think of something.
Sounds good. I love it. Oh, yes. Al fuego.
So I have a question though. So when the butterfly died, did you take it as a sign, or what did you do with it after that? I know it was really hard for you to deal with, but like, what did you do with it? Like, how did you view it after?
What did I do with the butterfly after it died?
No. How did you view the butterfly's death? Like,
How did I view the butterfly's death? That's a good question.
Very good question.
And the answer is, it's like, the butterfly couldn't fly. It had a damaged wing, and it just sort of fluttered. But it lived beautifully. I bought it some flowers and made some rotten fruit for it, and made some honey water, whatever Google told me to do. And I wanted that thing to live forever. Like, I wanted it to live for like a whole month. Hold on, I have to just like relax for a minute. So when it died, I was obviously like devastated.
Reasonably, I'd say.
But it really was a valuable lesson. I mean, God, there's, even to this day, I'm like driving down the street and I have an aha moment of like how this butterfly, how its presence in my life also meant this too, and what else it means. And when it died, I was like, you know what? We only have like one shot on this goddamn planet, and when our time is ready, like, we're gonna die, and there's no stopping it, there's no prolonging it. So it's like, whatever time we have, like, it's imperative that we spend that time making an impact in other people's lives. Like that butterfly made an impact in my life. And just recently, I was like, you know what else was beautiful about all that? Is the butterfly was what we would call handicap, right? It would park in the handicap spot because its wing didn't work. Or it would get special abilities, or people would feel sorry for it because it couldn't fly, but for me, like, there was nothing wrong with that butterfly. And that butterfly probably, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, aware that it couldn't fly. The point is that the butterfly lived its life to the fullest with a fucking broken wing, and little did he know, outside of his little butterfly world, he completely changed my life as a handicapped butterfly. So, like, nobody, the message I got from that is, like, nobody's perfect. And that's great. Like, that's the way it should be, because, imperfection is so beautiful.
It's what makes us human. I love
It's what makes us human, yeah.
Exactly. So the butterfly just showed you that, like, no matter how broken you are or whatever, you can still be beautiful and change people for the best.
Yeah, and that I don't have to think too much about what I want to do, and that I should just do it. And that's been what I've really been trying to focus on lately with this YouTube channel, is just not worrying about saying everything perfectly or editing the video perfectly. It's just like, do it, and then as you're doing it, you're just going to learn. You're just going to keep learning.
That's exactly what I'm doing with this goddamn podcast.
That's exactly,
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Each time, you just
Try
like,
harder.
okay, bloop, and now I'm going to do this differently. Next time, now I'm going to do this differently. And, that's how you work your way up to the top of the pyramid. Not thinking about the pyramid, but building it.
Exactly, one piece at a time.
Yep.
So the butterfly that you had in Metamorphosis, was that a symbol in relation to... Did you name the butterfly? I should ask that, actually. I feel like if I were you, I would have.
I named the butterfly Evo.
Evo!
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's a great name.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So was that butterfly that you had in Metamorphosis like a token to Evo?
Which butterfly?
There was one piece that looked so much like a butterfly to me, and maybe that was just my perception of it.
You know what? Yeah. That... 7 years ago, I drew this piece of artwork entitled Lagradon, and it was this beautiful dragon. And then I flipped it upside down, and I noticed that it turned into two people when you flipped it upside down. And this really...
Oh, you showed me that. I forgot about
yeah,
that. That was
like,
beautiful.
Yeah, that really fascinated me, and I was like, wow, like, there's something going on here. And that piece of artwork changed my life. And 7 years later, I'm doing this gallery, and I'm painting Lagradon in, what you call the butterfly, on this giant wall. And I feel like that moment was Lagradon coming to revisit me and say, hey, where are you at now? Like, what are you doing now with your life based on everything that I've taught you from this one piece of artwork? Like, literally changed my whole life. It started off in black and white on a 14 by 17 inch piece of paper. And then it came back 7 years on the dot, and I'm in this gallery. And I feel like it sort of went through a metamorphosis itself, and it was like a 7-year metamorphosis. And it came back, and it was like, what do you have for me, Matt? Like, what do you have to show me? And I'm like, this whole fucking gallery, you know? Going from my parents' kitchen table and drawing black and white images to painting an entire gallery in the Santa Fe Art District is where I am now.
It's truly inspiring. Like, I really look up to you a lot in a lot of different ways. Like, this room actually was heavily inspired by you. I've done as much as I know how with light and my financial status to create something that's transcending. Like, I want people to come here and feel whole and clear-headed and everything like that. And you provide that for so many people, and you open your doors and your spirit and your soul to so many people in order for them to feel that impact in whatever way they need to feel it. Like,
I appreciate that.
You're doing unreasonably incredible work. Like, you are what priests should aspire to be.
Yeah. It's wild. I'm excited to do this. I figured we would talk about this stuff. I'm really excited to share these stories with people.
I'm so grateful that you're willing to share these stories as well. Like, I know my audience is not that big yet, and I'm so grateful for every single one of them that there are. But it's just more voices that you're reaching. And you're creating an echo, you're creating a ripple in the ether, I guess. We'll just use that word.
I hope so. Yeah. I want to create a bigger one.
He
You
doesn't
will.
want to create a ripple, he wants to make a splash.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty. We're crossing about 7 minutes here, so I think it's about time to wrap it up. Do you have any final thoughts or tokens that you would like people to take away?
Yeah, definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel that I just started. It's called Mind of Matt Worldly. And it's just time for me to break out and share my stories of my artwork and stories of these synchronicities with the world, because I went to this 3-day sex conference like a month ago. I got in for free because my friend was massaging the people who were running it. So I got in for free. I went for 3 days, and it was really beautiful. And what I took away from it was from this couple that went on stage. They're like, all right, who's having problems in their relationship? We're here to help you. We want one couple to come up here, stand up. And this couple stood up, and they're like, all right, come on up. And they went through this thing where this like guided sort of process of understanding each other's feelings and seeing each other and holding space for that person. And there were like cameras zooming in on their face, and it was like so beautiful to watch these two people who have been married forever to just be so vulnerable on stage. And they, you know, to have them share their story and just to have it touch everyone in the audience. And from there, that was when I'm just like, I mean, there've definitely been multiple experiences, but that one in particular was like, it's time to share your stories, Matt. Like, it's not about you, it's about everybody else.
I like that a lot.
You know, the artwork is not about whether or not you can talk about it perfectly, or if the lighting is right, or if you don't have a microphone. Like, just do it, because just do it. The more you think about doing it, the less you're helping other people. So that's sort of the conclusion I came to, was the beauty that happens when stories are shared. It brings people together, makes them cry, and I love crying.
Crying cleanses my soul. I don't do it often.
Crying is like the rain on the earth. It nourishes the body and the plants and the mind.
Sounds like I gotta cry more.
I need to cry
Yeah,
more
you
too,
do.
but when I do it, it's totally worth it.
Let's watch Simon Birch or The Notebook. Those two will make me cry.
I've never seen either one of those.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
completely.
You'll cry. Both of them make you cry.
I've only ever cried at one movie, ever, and I've seen Bridge to Terabithia and Marley and Me and everything, and that one movie was the Harry Potter movie where Snape died. It got me so hard.
That's when you cried?
I cried.
Okay.
I lost my mind. It was just like so many levels to his death that was just so powerful. Like he was just like this undermined character that held so many pieces together, and he just dissipated and no one knew. And I don't know, kind of rounding back to what you were saying, like if he had opened up, like I know this is totally fandom shit, but like if he had opened up about his goals and his love and where his heart was and everything like that, he could have influenced a lot more people in a much more positive way. But he kept all of it in, and he became like this dark, menacing, evil being, even though at his core he wasn't. Like it hit home so hard for me.
Yeah, that's like sums up what I was just saying, really.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't like share whatever you got, share whatever gift or whatever information you have with the world, it's like eventually you start to resent yourself for not doing that.
Yeah.
And that really fuels the shadow.
It really does, and you don't want the shadow to get any bigger. It overwhelms. But thank you guys all for tuning into the podcast. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Be sure to check the description below for all of Matt Worldly's handles and links and everything like that. And again, also check out my personal Instagram and like the Dead Roots page on Facebook. We get some positive news into your feed every day. And I hope you were proud of who you were today, and thank you again for tuning in. I love all of you guys. Bye!